FBI Director Kash Patel has announced the extradition of Pakistani terrorist Mohammad Shahzeb Khan, who was plotting an attack on America's Jewish community. Khan has revealed that he was plotting an attack on Brooklyn's Jewish Center, which according to him would have been the biggest terror attack in America since 9/11. His plan was to use automatic and semi-automatic rifles and go on a shooting spree, and also wanted to use a knife for beheadings to send a message from ISIS. Shahbaz Khan is a 20-year-old who entered Canada from Pakistan as a student and began plotting this after being influenced by the ISIS in 2023. This extradition victory of United States comes days after Shashi Tharoor-led Indian delegation left United States after explaining India's action against the terror state Pakistan. At the same time, Bilawal Bhutto was also in the United States. India has yet again been vindicated on Pakistan, with another Pakistani being caught in a terror attack plot. Let's open up this discussion. Ambassador Suresh Goyal on the telecast with me. Ambassador Goyal, what do you make of this extradition that has happened of this Pakistani national who was plotting an attack on a Jewish center in United States of America, and what does this say about America and its concern about terrorism emanating out of Pakistan?
When I read the story, the first thought that came to my mind was that after Pahalgam, and when India had taken action in the form of Operation Sindhu, and President Trump, he announced his success in mediating between India and Pakistan, and he claimed that both Indian and Pakistan leaders are my good friends. India and Pakistan, important countries. He had equated India and Pakistan right there in front of all the international audience, as if the terrorism originating from Pakistan and being conducted by Pakistani nationals, and those who are living in Pakistan, Hafiz Saeed, Ajay, I mean, as if they were not important enough. While India has been fighting, has been reacting to those acts of terrorism. So when this person was caught and extradited, after being caught with the plan, with the conspiracies to do what he's saying, I'm sure that USA will now realize where the actual snakes are and how they need to take care of them. And if they don't take care of them now, that it is going to basically bite them again, like what had been done by Mohammed bin not Qasab, but Osama bin Laden. Megha.
Okay, I'm also being joined by Major General Rajan Kochar. General Kochar, the question arises time and again that the Indian delegation led by Shashi Tharoor has visited United States of America, has once again raised the pitch on Dawood, who has been given safe havens, being harbored by Pakistan, part of a number of terror attacks that have taken place and terror links that in India. I think his daughter has been married to Javed Miadad's son. Somehow this travesty, the audacity with which Pakistan continues to safeguard and protect its terrorists is not really registering amidst the political class in the United States of America. While on the other hand, in a direct contrast, we see that a Pakistani national who had plotted to attack a Jewish center, an attack on the Jews in America, has been within days extradited. India's demands for that extradition going out to the United Nations, UNSC, wanting for a terrorist organization, the Resistance Front, designating it as a global, as a UN terrorist organization, has been a hard task. It looks like we have been knocking at doors that refuse to answer our calls.
Thank you, Megha, for bringing me into this discussion. The US policy seems to be short-sighted, I would say that. Because if you have a far-sighted policy on terrorism, you will not be indulging in these kind of statements and activities as we are seeing today. look at the growth and the resurgence of ISIS and Al Qaeda. Look what is happening in Afghanistan today. The ISIS and Al Qaeda, all those elements are finding a safe haven there. And they are going to proliferate to the United States because United States is a stated enemy of both these terrorist organizations. And when we look at such actions of the United States and we see a soft corner for Pakistan, why? The question is that today the Pakistani army chief gets invited to the United States Army Day function, giving him a prominence over so many army chiefs, including the Indian Army chief, who I believe has not been invited. Uh, that is one small indicator uh, what the United States is trying to buttress Pakistan with. Because there are two, three important elements coming into play. One is the United States wants to play a greater role in the South Asian region, which possibly is dominated by China today. We see interference of United States in Bangladesh in the Saint Martin Islands. We see interference of United States in Myanmar, and we are seeing the same kind of a situation in Pakistan today.
Okay.
And Pakistan and India are being hyphenated. So that's a dangerous sign, I think, Mega. And in times to come, I think this policy of United States is going to pay very, very heavy on the United States because if you encourage terrorism, there's no good or bad terrorism here. Terrorism has only one meaning, and it has to be finished. It is a scourge on the earth, and it has to be eliminated. And if United States does not feel it that way, I'm sorry to say what is happening in the United States today in California, Los Angeles, Dallas, New York. These riots are spreading all over United States. United States will find it very difficult if terrorism also starts spreading its tentacles in the United States, because then it will be very difficult for the United States to control the situation within its own country. Omega.
Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, who's the former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan and to Canada, is also on the telecast with me. Thank you very much, Ambassador Bisaria, for joining me on the telecast. My first question, of course, about the Pakistani man who went to study in Canada, had been plotting a terror attack on the Jews in the United States and in India for the ISIS. How troubling is this development?
Well, it's certainly troubling, but it's also not very surprising because we've been seeing and saying for a while that Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism. Multiple terrorism plots are hatched in Pakistan and by Pakistanis. There's a thriving ecosystem of terrorism, and it's an ecosystem which supports global terrorism. So terrorism is alive and well in Pakistan, and many of its citizens are involved in terrorism. So it doesn't come as a huge surprise.
Does extradition of the Pakistani national vindicate India as we are reaching out to the world seeking a unified fight against Pakistan's terrorism?
Absolutely. I think it certainly does vindicate what India has been saying for decades. And it also vindicates what India has said very recently. The 7 parliamentary delegations that went to 33 countries with 60 MPs were saying precisely this. And one of the messages that the delegations were giving and India has been giving is that terrorism is not just India's problem, it's also the world's problem. And what we saw recently, or what this episode tells us, is that there was a plan to attack people in New York City. So that would have been an attack if it had succeeded, which would have been a parallel of 9/11 or of 7th October. And this certainly does vindicate what India has been saying, that Pakistan is an epicenter of terrorism. They are universities of terrorism, which promote young people taking up careers in terrorism and spreading it across the world.
Now, Pakistan's obvious response is going to be that it has got nothing to do with this terrorist and ISIS, and it is Canada's problem. Do you see that as an argument that will augur well with the United States, and does that make China a safe haven for terrorists as well?
No, I think what it shows is that both Canada and the United States, which are part of the Five Eye intelligence sharing network, do understand the nature of the threat that comes from Pakistan. They are coordinating and cooperating at a very high level. Pakistan will obviously be in denial, but what the world and these two countries should investigate is whether this individual was also supported by any state agency of Pakistan. Because we know that Pakistan state supports terrorists across the world as well. We've seen this in Khalistani activism being supported by the Pakistan ISI globally, whether it's in Canada, the US, or elsewhere. And we've seen multiple other kinds of terrorism being supported by the Pakistan state. And that is precisely what the investigation will look into and should look into. Whether this was just a lone wolf operative who was representing the ISIS, or was he a person with some connection to Pakistan's official agencies like the ISI, which may have used him as an asset for doing some of their dirty work.
Now, we've also raised this concern with Canada. A recent Khalistani rally had Pakistani flags being displayed. Now, Pakistani national has been found in the Canada plotting major terror attack. Since you have been India's High Commission to Canada as well, do you think Canada is also to blame for ignoring terrorism growing in its backyard?
Well, India's problem has been, and in its conversations with Canada, not just now, but for about more than 4 decades, is that Canada does end up giving too much space to extremism, to extremists. Canada's problem is that they say their freedom of speech rules are very accommodative, and therefore, unless there's strong evidence, they don't take action against these people. But what we as India have been trying to explain to our Canadian friends is that there are many individuals, anti-India people, rogue agencies and their representatives like the ISI, which abuse this democratic freedom of expression and use this situation to promote terrorism of various kinds. And as you mentioned, we've seen a strong collusion between those advocating the case of Kashmir, for instance, and Khalistan. They all seem to get together. They all seem to have a common answer, and that could be the Pakistani state, which likes to use these assets globally. You know, it is part of their low-cost proxy warfare against India. And this is something India draws the attention of global partners to. It talks to various global agencies about this issue. And hopefully cases like this will vindicate what India has been saying, and have these agencies, look at this problem with a lot more attention and a lot more seriousness.
What should India's next diplomatic move to mount pressure on Pakistan, United States of America as well, for terror state funding after the recent outreach that has been made to 33 countries by our diplomats, by our members of parliament?
Well, we are in a phase of post-Pahalgam diplomacy. You saw that multiple parliamentary delegations had fanned out and spoke of this situation, the new normal that India is now setting up to deter terrorism. We also saw India's diplomats, the foreign minister, the foreign secretary go to major capitals and talk about it. The prime minister will be next week in Canada. He'll be talking to his peers, the G7 nations and others, talking about this issue. So diplomacy is a slow process. We must understand that we won't get immediate results. It's not that you'll suddenly end all IMF support to Pakistan, or you'll one fine day have every country breaking relations with Pakistan. But what we need to do is steadily draw the attention of the world to this very serious problem emanating from Pakistan, and use all the levers like the FATF, the IMF, the global lending institutions, and the force of multilateral organizations to put pressure on Pakistan to get it to change its behavior on terrorism. And that's exactly what India is doing. What we must remember is that it's not something which will give us overnight results, but we should steadily keep sending the message to all our partners and friends.
Okay, but let's understand how Pakistan has acted against India in the last 76 years. Pakistan continues to push terror. The United Nations Security Council has cited procedure to make it chair of the counter-terror panels. What does it mean with regards to United Nations credibility in countering terror and holding terror states responsible when they need to be chastised and pulled up?
Well, I think you have to factor in the nature of the UN process. It is very procedure bound. It's terrible optics, I agree. We did and we should have argued that this is bad optics, giving an IMF loan to Pakistan on the 9th of May, or releasing a bunch of it, allowing Pakistan to chair or co-chair sanctions committee. But we all knew, Pakistan is a member of the United Nations. It does every decade or so get a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council does have multiple committees, and Pakistan will, of course, get to chair some of them. So it's not such a big deal that Pakistan is part of that. But, we should continue to draw the attention of the world at the irony of Pakistan chairing counterterrorism committees, and also make sure that it does not abuse that position to give itself a free pass in promoting terrorism.
India has also made a massive push to globally define terror and the states that support it. Have we been able to manage in getting a consensus, global consensus on that?
I don't think we are, because this is a complex process. It's gone on for decades. The Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism is a document which has got stalled because of the definition of terrorism. And that is because countries like Pakistan don't want a common definition to come about, because it would throw up a lot of attention to them, because they would like to dress up terrorism as freedom struggles, and they would like to talk of root causes. So I think a lot of India's attention should go to working outside that system also, bilaterally, not just multilaterally, because multilateral processes can become bogged down in procedures. But what we should do is draw the attention of major powers, major countries in the world to the Pakistan problem, and explain to the world that it is not just India's problem, it can be the world's problems. We could have had a major terrorist attack in New York City if the agencies had not been alert enough to apprehend this man. And I think this is something which we need to also take up directly with Pakistan as a global community in order to get it to change its behavior.
All right, thank you, Ambassador Ajay Basaria, for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views on this very important subject. General Kocher back on the telecast with me. And General Kocher, quickly a response from you. It's also interesting to know how ironical this is, that till the time the Pakistani political leadership and the Pakistani army continues its terror onslaught on India, the Americans and the West are not really concerned. But the moment these terror attacks are subjected to the Jews, all hell breaks loose. It's also interesting to know how Pakistan is going to balance it out, because its political class, its army, Pakistani people, Muslims at large in these radical countries have a very anti-Zionist narrative, this ideology. This ideology is in fact something that terror outfits emanating out of Pakistan and other parts of the Middle East, which are then targeting the Jews, which are in fact the Hamas attacks that had happened on October 7th, last year. The genesis of it was also the anti-Zionist sentiment. How does America balance it out with Pakistan in perpetuating this anti-Jew, anti-Semitic sentiment within the country?
Megha, you have to understand one thing. There is a compartmentalized approach which the United States is actually adopting today. It is separating the ideology from the fundamental geopolitics of a particular region. And I'll try to qualify my statement with the example of Syria. In Syria, we have a former Al Qaeda terrorist who is the president of Syria today, Abu Muhammad al Jalani. United States has shaken hands with him today.
Yeah.
Because why? Because of geopolitical reasons, because United States does not want any Russian presence in Syria as of now, and United States wants to establish its own bases in Syria so that it can dominate the West Asian region. And that is why all the sanctions have been lifted against Syria. So if I take this as an example of the thinking of the President of the United States or the foreign policy of the United States, then it becomes easier to understand the kind of relationship United States wants to keep with Pakistan. There are two reasons why United States keeps aside the ideologies here. The first reason is that of China's increasing influence in South Asia. And United States feels that it needs to develop a better relations with Pakistan. If you remember, Megha, during the Biden administration, the relations between United States and Pakistan were not that good. Trump is now trying to bring Pakistan closer to America, firstly to check the American influence, secondly to contain strengthening of India. Because today, if you have a look at the world economies, India is the fastest growing economy in the world. Trump does not want to make the mistake he made with China. He allowed China to grow, and or United States allowed China to grow, and today China is more than an adversary. Therefore, United States does not want India to grow, and therefore we see the involvement in Bangladesh. We
Yeah.
see the involvement in Myanmar. We see the involvement in our northeastern states. We have sufficient intelligence to believe that there is a US hand in the troubles which are happening in our northeastern states. So, if we take that as a rudiment of the foreign policy of the United States, that it needs to contain India and therefore needs to strengthen Pakistan and therefore needs to engage India all the time with Pakistan and other problems which the Indians have. And there is also an internal issue here because United States is funding certain NGOs in India to speak anti-India sentiments. We are aware of the situation. So if that is the case, then it becomes very, very clear to understand that why this terrorism thing is not being recognized or not being associated with the Pakistan.
Yeah.
Pakistan is being shown as a victim of terrorism, as a matter of fact, because the kind of statements which emanate from Trump, he is equating Pakistan and India as far as terrorism is concerned as both being victims of terrorism, which I think is not correct, and
Yeah.
it's not the true facts as the world sees it. And therefore, I would like to conclude this argument here, saying that American foreign policy today in South Asia is a short-term policy. It's not a far-sighted policy because
Okay.
tomorrow this terrorism is going to hit America.
Yeah. Okay.
ISIS is going to become strong, the Al Qaeda is going to become strong, and they're going to hit America.
Okay. All right. On that note, I'm out of time. Thank you, General Kocha, for joining me on the telecast.